Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inspire. I am your host, Sha Hayes. We are so excited and honored to have here with us a woman who when I first met her, I just was in awe because I have never met a Black female pilot. And I just was amazed by that. Like, it's almost like he was, engaged with a super figure, like a superhero. She's a pilot, she's an author, she's a speaker, but to me, like I said, she's a superhero. But without further ado, let's welcome Ms. Hopson.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I can't thank you enough for that introduction. Sha, it's so funny when you say superhero, I always think, geez, I bet my cape is in the cleaners right next to the rest of my laundry.
It's so true. Like when I love the picture where you're standing in front of the tail of the engine of the plane and you're standing there in that stance. I can only imagine all little girls, especially Black girls, being able to see that image and believing, is that real? Is that real? But, because, little girls, we grew up seeing dolls and cartoons. We don't see the portrayal of women in roles as that. I know I've flown since I was probably 10 years old, and I've never seen a woman pilot in any flights. I know there are more women out there, but let alone an African-American woman. So I am so honored to have you here with us so we can talk about your journey and what led you to where you are today.
That is so awesome, and I thank you for that. Indeed, I'll start off with some numbers. That'll really give us context. In the United States, there are approximately 100,000 people who fly for a living.
Mm.
Of that number, on a good day, I like to say, 7% are women.
Mm.
On a great day, 3% are African Americans. Those are real easy pilot numbers, right? 100,000, that's 7,000, that's 3,000. The number of Black women who fly for a living, we are less than 100.
Wow.
That means that we are less than 1% of everyone who flies, and we have to change that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start at the beginning, and then I'm going to wind up where we started. And here's how I think that we can change that. Right over my shoulder. Whoops.
It's the mirror image right there. I do this all the time.
Right over my shoulder. It's actually over my left shoulder. It's a picture of the book that I just wrote. It's called A Pair of Wings. And it's about Bessie Coleman, who flew in the 1920s. And my goal with the book is book, movie, and I want to send 100 Black women to flight school.
Yeah.
So we'll end where we started. Thank you so much for bringing that up. It's on my website. We'll talk about all that, CaroleHopson.com. And 20% of every book sale goes towards getting Black women into flight school. But we'll come back to all that.
Yeah, and it's an important thing for us to know, especially the statistics about who flies and those who are actually flying the planes. But I wanted to take a step back to the earlier parts of Carole, the little girl at home, dreaming, whether she had big dreams or small dreams. When you were younger, what inspired, what was your dream as far as what you wanted to do and you stood in the mirror and looked at yourself?
Sha, thank you so much for that question. When I was little, ever since I can remember, so I'm going to say that happened, first memories I had were somewhere around age 4. And I would lie in the grass at my grandmother's house, my dad's mother. My grandmother lived in South Jersey. I was born in West Philadelphia. I know. You hear the song, West Philadelphia.
Born and raised, right?
And that's all true, okay? I grew up not too far from where Will Smith was born. Anyway, my grandmother lived in South Jersey. It's very close. So North Jersey, where I live now, Jersey City, is to Manhattan, what South Jersey is to Philadelphia. Very close, right across the bridge, as we used to say. So my grandmother's home was on the approach to Philadelphia International Airport. And on Sundays, we would go to my grandmother's house for dinner. And I would lie in the grass and watch the airplanes go overhead. And I would count them and describe how many engines they had and what color they were and all kinds of stuff like that. And my grandmother would come out and join me. Sometimes she would actually bring my dinner out there and we would sit. And sometimes she'd bring a globe and she would spin it. And she'd say, let's see, where do you think that airplane is coming from? Do you think it's coming from India? Maybe Australia? Maybe Africa? Maybe it's coming from Europe. How many countries are there in Europe? How many seas are there? How many seas are there in the 7 seas? What are they? And you'd say, well, 7, of course. Well, name them. Well, how far away is Africa? How many countries are there in Africa? And my grandmother was the inspiration for my wanderlust. And later, when I got older, 12 or 13 years old, I would still lay in the grass, and that got me out of a chore or two. And I still wanted to learn how to fly. Fast forward, I went to college and graduate school, and I just had never seen a Black woman, just like you said, Sha, never seen a Black woman who flew. I never saw a woman who had eyeglasses who flew. It just seemed like a world so far away. And so I started college, and then I left and graduate school. I was a newspaper reporter. I worked at the National Football League. I worked at Foot Locker, and then at L'Oreal Cosmetics. And each time my dream got further and further away. I met my husband, who at the time was a date, and I knew he was a keeper when he asked this question. He said, tell me your heart's desire. Tell me what you want. Yeah, no, that's what I said too.
Well, that's a good one.
Come on, line.
You know, that's like what I say. That's a look. Somebody asks somebody a line like, "What's your heart's desire?" That's a good one.
And I said, if you laugh at me when I tell you, I will never see you again. He said, oh my goodness. And we had gone to undergrad together and everything. He said, what in the world could be on your mind?
Right.
What in the world? And I said, I just blurted it out. I said, I want to fly an airplane. A couple weeks later, we went out for a date, and he said, I cook, you clean. And I picked up my placemat, and under my placemat was an envelope, and the envelope had my name on it. And inside were gift certificates to go to fly. I took my first flight lesson, and we had another dinner. He said, so tell me what you thought. And I said, I'll quit my job. He said, whoa, 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 whoa.
That's not what this plan was about.
And as we got to talking, he said, well, if you're really serious, we need to create an exit strategy. And so then my life just went into hyperdrive. And people ask me all the time, how did you pivot? Right? How did you do this to that? And I say each big decision is made of many little ones. And so here's how it happened. We got married. We moved to New Jersey because that's where, flight schools were. And then after we did that, I took another job so I could bank my 6-figure a year salary, put it away. And then I went to flight school. I went full time, and I went with gusto, and I finished everything. And I went from making 6 figures a year to $17 an hour. And I've never been happier professionally. And
so when you look back at that, because you're saying you're in a professional career, and though you were, this calling, I would like to say, was always inside of you to be a pilot. Were you afraid to just step out, or was it just something you like, this yearn is never going to go away until I go into it?
Such a good question. God, you ask good questions. So was I afraid? I think I was more afraid of denying that yearning. I think I was more afraid of saying, yeah, I'm successful. And I have a very good girlfriend who says I was fantastically unhappy. Now, I was not unhappy. I had a great job, had a great boss. I had people in 3 time zones, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. I love the people I picked in my team. I had 21 people at Foot Locker. I had a great boss. I like to say I picked my boss. Great lesson number 1, pick your boss.
Yes.
Yes. And for those entrepreneurs, that would be yourself. And even if you're not an entrepreneur, if you work inside of an organization, you're still your own boss. But I digress. I'll come back to that because that's a lesson learned. Where I wanted to go with that, to your question, to answer your question, I think I was much more afraid of not doing what I wanted to do and saying, what if maybe I should have. Geez Louise, why don't I think about it? That's what I think I was afraid of. And when you do it like that, you say, wow, I realize I'm covering up the propeller. I'll go this way. as you think about things like that, all of a sudden it got very clear that this is something that I should do, not do.
Right, especially when they say if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. So I guess in that moment of realizing that, if I'm having this journey, although you're living, what you would say comfortably in a profession, but you still had something that, was being called on, you wanted to do this and you didn't want to let fear, if nothing else, stand in the way of that. So that's an ambitious thing. But when you, at the time you're like, were you a parent at that point? Because a lot of times decisions are made based on children, because I have to put my children in school. So were you a mother at that moment?
I love that question. No, I wasn't. So what had happened was I had gone to flight school full time. I was moving and grooving. And that video, it's so funny, backstage I could see it, but I couldn't hear it. You guys could hear it, right? So you don't even have to hear anything, but you see the numbers at 36, at 54.
Yes.
Wow, those are big numbers.
Yeah. You put it out there now, right? But you look amazing. That's what makes the difference, right?
Girl, it's stitched together with a little bit of gum and some good mascara. So here's what happened. So I'm 36 years old. I can hear the ice cream truck in the back.
I was going to say, let me mute this so when you're talking, when we play.
Oh no, it's okay. I don't mind, because that reminds me of kids. So it's right on time. It's totally okay. Girl, listen, my dog is sitting here. I hope that the dog next door doesn't bark. Oh my goodness. So here's what happens. So I go to flight school. I'm moving and grooving. I'm doing great. And then September 11th happened. And when that happened, the sky was falling. My husband said, hey, listen, we're not getting any younger. It's time to have kids. And I said, I don't know about you, big guy, but I am ageless. So you go ahead and claim that.
Yeah.
And what happened was, I was pregnant by September 17th.
Oh.
The sky was falling.
Yeah.
And so I had one baby, and we knew, my husband and I knew, that if we had one, we would have two. The first one was for us, and the second one was for the baby, right?
Yes, that's a good decision, yeah.
Right?
Playmates. Go play with them. I'm not here to play with you.
Go play. And then also, we were older.
Yeah.
So if we didn't make it, if we had any issues or whatever, we wanted to be able to say, here is your other companion in life.
Yeah.
It's your brother, it's your sister. That was very important to us as older parents. So let me get back to your question. So I have one, then I have the second baby. With my first baby, I gained 140 pounds.
Wow.
I gained almost 300 pounds after that baby. So for the next year, all I did was lose weight and flight instruct. So I never stopped flying. And then something happened. I had that first baby and I fell in love with that baby. I became the second one. And I, who have a sister whom I adore, and I have a lot of girlfriends, a healthy component of really strong girlfriends. All of a sudden I had all these boys and we were having a ball. I didn't want to leave them. So I stayed home for 14 years.
Oh my, wow.
Oh my. And when I got to 36, now let me be fair and let me explain. I never stopped flying. And then I started writing the book, I'm gonna get this darn thing right.
Right, yeah. It's the mirror image thing. It's like the opposite of whatever you see.
The second time I got it. And I started writing the book. And so then I had plenty of things to occupy both my mind and how I was doing things. And after that, I think that's what I really needed. So I was a mom. I was a pilot. I was an instructor pilot. I taught people to fly. And then I went out and I got a job at a sim company. So I would rush off to the simulator company. It was in Whippany, New Jersey, about 20 minutes, 30 minutes from my home. And I would go and I would take these sim assignments in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning. And then by the time it was time to get my kids up and go to school, I would rush home, get them up, make the lunch from the day before, take it out the fridge, stick it in their backpacks. And it was time to go to school. Then I would run off again to the sim company. I would do my session, and then I would run back and be the first one in the pickup line. And people would say, "What'd you do today?" And I'd say, "Oh, I just buzzed around."
But
It was my job.
But you allowed yourself that time to be able to still live your dream, because oftentimes when people become parents, they let that fall to the wayside. They don't think they can pursue those same things and aspirations because of the fact that they're now a parent. But let's think. I want to ask about you going to flight school and becoming an instructor. Tell about that process, because, like you say, you were kind of still fulfilling your dream by being a mom and still being a flight instructor. Talk about the process of getting those certifications, and what does that look like?
I love that question. And I love it for a couple reasons. One is, I think I'm uniquely qualified to tell Black women how to do this. How do you do this? And here goes the challenge for us. But every challenge has an opportunity. And I want to acknowledge one thing before I answer that question. You said something I thought was key. And it involves two components. One is, you're right, I never took myself off the list. Both getting my body and my mind back together. And now I'm going to roll right into your question. We have something called an FAA medical. That is a requirement. So at United Airlines, where I work, twice a year, I have to go and get my medical. Twice a year, I have to get what's known as a first class medical. And that medical involves my sugar levels, my weight, my height, my vision, my generic cognitive, etc.
Right.
So if I knew if I didn't get that back, right? I'm a little vain, fine. If I didn't get that back and my sugar spiked, or if I didn't get that back and my blood pressure spiked, or if I didn't get that back and I developed blood clots or heart disease or kidney problems or any other problems that in our community we doggone it struggle with.
Yeah.
I was going to have a hard time getting to first base. First base, go get your FAA medical, because that'll let you know, right? You have any problems to correct, fix, get to? Very first thing to do. Very first thing to do. So that's the second thing. Very first thing to do is go to your local flight school and take what's known as a discovery flight. It's $99 or $100. See? Okay. Right? Like, who knew?
That's like a Groupon price. I'm like, who knew that? No.
And on Groupon, you can get yourself a little discount.
Really? Wow. I never knew that.
I think it's like $159 or something. Maybe Groupon does it for $139. I don't know. You go to a website called beapilot.com.
Okay.
And I don't know if they're still doing it, but pre-COVID, I think the ride was $99. So they took a little coupon, if you will, and the flight schools were accepting it. Anyway, here in the New Jersey area, how many people, or where is the reach of this show?
Well, it is, because we call it, it's actually a global show, because we've had reaches in Nigeria and France. So we've had guests on from both of those places. So we definitely have a global reach.
So I'll focus on the United States, although this is generic for around the world. But the US is very unique around, I talked to a woman the other day about Canada, but the US is very unique in that our general aviation, which is anything other than what I do right now, right, for airlines, is very generous. It's very, that's why people came here to learn how to fly, right, from all over the world. So let me say, so you take that discovery flight, it's 1 hour. That was the gift certificate that my husband gave.
Okay.
And so in that discovery flight, it's 45 minutes to an hour. And in my case, a discovery flight, we left Teterboro. We went east. We took a right-hand turn. We went south. And if you're following me, right down the Hudson River, we passed the World Trade Center on the left. And on the right, we passed the Statue of Liberty. We made a turn before the Verrazano, came north again by all the buildings, made a left and went to Teterboro. It was thrilling. And so you take that 45-minute flight, wherever the heck you go. And then if you love it, you go back and you talk about the first step, which is the private pilot license, PPL. After that comes a rating. It's called an instrument rating. And it's what you do to enable you to fly in, say, rainy conditions or foggy conditions where you don't have the natural horizon as your reference, as your eyeball reference to the ground and the sky, or what's known as your attitude. So after your instrument, so it's private pilot instrument, then something called a commercial. Now, commercial is a designation of 250 hours. That means that you can charge for your time. So then the next might be a certified flight instructor so that you can charge for your time instructing. So I instructed, I taught people, I taught kids, I taught adults, I flew people who were taking pictures, I inspected pipelines. I did all sorts of stuff to build time. I flew people who made news reports for the weather. Oh my goodness. I did all sorts of things to build time. When you build 1,500 hours, you are then able to apply for the airlines. First the regional airline and then the major airlines. And there along the way, you get what's known as a multi-engine, so an aircraft with more than one engine, generally two. You get multi-engine certification, and I did. I got an MEI instructor, multi-engine instructor. So I don't want to put y'all to sleep, but those are the steps, and they're very important because we don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, and that was the thing. I was, as far as my perception, that these airlines provide the flight school. Like you can apply, they hire you just based on your abilities to see, write, walk, and talk, and then they put you through this. So you're saying a lot of that is stuff you have to do on your own prior to even getting to the airlines.
And then some. But let me just tell you how smart you are, Sha. So here's the thing. Before the pandemic, we had a pilot shortage. Now that we're on the other side of the pandemic, almost, it is still struggling. So as long as one amongst us is sick, all of us have potential for variants and everything. So I say that to say this. Now on the other side of the pandemic, guess what? We still have a pilot shortage. So United Airlines became one of the first U.S. airlines current day. A long time ago, TWA did it, but Lufthansa is doing it right now. And we became one of the first airlines to buy a flight school. I want to also mention, there's a flight school that's called the Lieutenant Colonel Luke Weathers Flight Academy. If you go to a website, OBAP, Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, OBAP, OBAP.org. If you go to that website, you'll find it. The flight school we started in 2018. It's amazing. It cost me about $150,000. That's what half a college to go get all those ratings. So you see what I did with my money. I put it into my friends.
That's right.
Well, not everybody can go and do that, but I had the good fortune of having that job and being able to sock my income away. So here's what happened. The military used to train a lot of pilots. And now that the military is training less pilots, we're going to have to figure out a way to help people fund this education. And one of the best ways to do that is by going to a 501c3 or a nonprofit school. And that's Luke Weathers down in Olive Branch, Mississippi. So my airline started a program called Aviate, Aviate, Aviate. It's a flight school in Phoenix, Arizona. You apply, you get accepted, and then there is tuition and assistance like that. But those are two different ways to get to being an airline pilot. And I say you're so smart because you see on the other side of the pandemic, we had a business problem, right? Not pilots. Here we are on the other side. And what do? We need to buy a flight school so that there's a V-shaped recovery that can happen on the other side when people start flying again. We need qualified flight crews, and it takes 3 to 5 years to go through that whole process that I just described for you, the different licenses and ratings and certificates, and then 1,500 hours, and then qualify for the majors. So more than a notion, it's really a challenge.
Yeah, and that's really one of the things that's kind of mind-blowing to me, thinking about how much it takes to go into it, but just the fact that why there isn't more cultivating of young people to want them to be in part of this, because since it does take so much longer to be a part of it, you would think you want them at some either high school level or transitioning right out of the military some kind of way. And that was the question I was thinking of. Going in the military, if you're in Air Force and they're teaching you those skills, being a fighter pilot, are you able to take that same skill set and fly an actual aircraft plane? Is the same thing?
You are so smart. You are just such a good interviewer. You sure are. You ask the right questions. Oh my goodness, you make it easy. So let me say two things. One is, so what made the Aviate really unique is that they want to hire 5,000 pilots by the end of the decade.
Mm-hmm.
I've said I want to get 100 Black women to flight school by 2035. Mm-hmm. And what they've said is that half, so 2,500 of those pilots from now to the end of the decade, they want to be women and people of color.
Mm-hmm.
So they've made a real commitment to do that. I've made a personal commitment to make that happen. So I'm glad that my commitment aligns with my organization's commitment. So let me get to your question. The military is just training fewer pilots. What they are training a lot of is people who fly what's known as UAS, or unmanned aircraft systems. And that's a whole nother area. But I welcome people into that. One of the young women, if you go to my website, there's a video, I think it's on Purpose. Not on Purpose, but it's on the Purpose page. Purpose. If you go all the way down, you'll see there's this video of myself and 3 young Black women, and I flew them all around the Memphis.
I saw that, yeah.
And in that video, one of the young women made this film. I didn't even know that she was making the film. It was such a gift. Oh my God. I was very honored. And so she went on to be, we call, the proverbial term is drone, but a UAS pilot for a company called Wing, owned by Google. So they're so innovative. Listen to what they're doing. Let's say, oh my goodness, I'm out of oatmeal. I've got everybody over for breakfast. Well, I need to hurry up and get my bloody oatmeal. I don't even have time to go out because I got to bathe. I got to get myself together. So I'm going to order my oatmeal, my fruit, and I need banana bread. And I need it here in 2 hours because everybody will be getting up. I got a house full of people. COVID's over. Guess what? It drops your package in 2 hours.
Oh, how about that?
And so what they're doing is they're putting together programs to do that innovation. And then a woman is flying for Wing. Before she went to Google and the alphabet company Wing, she was working for a company in Africa where they were delivering life-saving plasma because the roads were bad. So they picked it up here and dropped it off there. They didn't have to worry about the roads no more.
Well, it's good to know they're actually allowing humans to do it, as opposed to having a drone. So that's good that they're putting, people behind in that position to be able to fly, as opposed to, again, having a drone just drop packages off in front of people's houses. But we have 2 young ladies, or Brylan and Phoenix. I'm just two young ladies, I believe it is, here that want to ask you a question. And I want to bring in Brylan first and let her go ahead and ask her a question. Oh, they're together. Brylan and Phoenix are together. Hi, Brylan and Phoenix. How are you?
We're good.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Hi, you girls are so beautiful.
Hello. Thank you.
Oh my God. So wonderful to see you.
So, Brylan, you had a question for Ms. Hopson. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes. My question was, what classes did you have to take to be a pilot?
Brylan, I think your questions are as good as Shaw's. Thank you for that. That is a great question. So let me tell you a little bit about my education. I went to the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Virginia. I also went to a school called St. Louis University in Madrid. I did my junior year abroad in school. And then later, I went to Columbia University to get my master's degree in journalism. And I don't know if you heard some of my story, but I was a newspaper reporter when I started my career. And people often say to me, oh my goodness, your background is so eclectic. That's a fancy word for saying you did a lot of stuff. What in the world, how'd you get where you are? And so what I always say is, each one of those jobs taught me a new skill, and I put it into my little sack, my little bag, and I took those skills with me where I was going. And so asking good questions, learning, knowing how to study, knowing how to tease out what's important. That's what I got from being a reporter, from being an executive. I got, well, really good people skills, right? Because you got to get stuff done through other people, not just directly doing it. So your question was about what classes did I take? So I took Spanish literature. I took a lot of journalism classes. I was pretty good. I was pretty good in math, and I was pretty good in science. But back when I was your age, they didn't encourage girls to go to math and science. I would really encourage you to take the, look at you smiling. I would, some mom or somebody saying, yes, that's right, take those classes. I would encourage you to do that. I would really encourage you to take classes in whatever stokes that beautiful mind of yours. You're such a pretty girl. Is that your sister sitting next to you?
Yes.
Yes. So you're both beautiful. I love your hairdos. I love your pretty faces. And inside of that beautiful face, underneath that gorgeous hair of yours, is a wonderful mind. I could just tell looking at you. Take classes and stuff that makes you say, I'm curious about that. How does that work? I'm curious about that. What does that do? Use your own brain to help you figure out, oh, I know I'm going to do this or that.
In Phoenix, you also had a question for Ms. Hopson too, right?
What you got, Phoenix?
How are you?
Take your time.
How old were you when you first learned how to fly a plane?
I was super old, probably older than your mom is. So I wouldn't advise it for everybody. I was 34 years old when I took my first flight. And I was 36 years old. I know that's like ancient, right?
Her face is like, what?
I hope the reason she's saying is, wow, she's older than 36 right now.
Right.
So here's the deal. I went to flight school really late, but I want to help other women go to flight school much earlier than me so that they can have a really long career. Although having said that, I really enjoyed the stuff I did before. I wrote for newspapers. I worked at the National Football League. I worked for Foot Locker. I worked for L'Oreal Cosmetics. I did all kinds of stuff. I did all kinds of stuff that made my mind excited. That's what I did.
That's so great. That's so great that they're able to see, as I say, this amazing superhero that she actually flies planes. Have you all ever gotten a plane before?
Yes, I have.
Oh, I can't wait till I have you on my flight. You see these? Let me move my hair so you can see. You see these? These are my stripes. See that? And then right here, yeah, cool. Right here. This, whoops. Oh God, this thing messes me up. Here go my wings. And on my tie, I have wings as well. This means I'm a union member. Okay. So my union represents me and helps with my wages and the hours and how we fly. I just love those children.
Right.
And so that's it. So it's a little hard to see my uniform when I'm sitting down, I know. And I want to show you guys something. I'm gonna get this straight sooner or later.
Right.
Right on the top of my shoulder is a picture of a book I wrote. So let me see if I can pick this up and show you. Oh, that's my dog. My dog is gonna go bark at another dog.
That reacting to each other. It's all right.
This is a book I wrote about this lady right here, and her name is Bessie Coleman, and she flew airplanes in the 1920s. And what's so amazing about this lady, and what made me do exactly like you're doing, Phoenix, is that she had to learn French in order to go to school in France, because no one would teach a Black woman how to fly.
Wow.
That was in the 1920s. Have you ever heard of Amelia Earhart?
Yes,
Yeah. I know. Well, guess what? She flew before Amelia Earhart ever flew. She flew 2 years before Amelia.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad thing is, she's kind of not in our history books. How did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote a book to change all of that. How about that?
Isn't that exciting to know that not only, from Bessie Coleman and her legacy, we have Miss Hopson here, who's creating a new legacy for herself and young ladies like yourself. So you have anything else you want to say to her?
I just want to say thank you, and for encouraging women to fly, and especially colored women to do what they dream to do, because most women like to hide because of their color, how they look, but when another colored woman steps out and shows her colors, it makes a really good impact.
Wow. Who is your mama?
Right.
I see.
Where's your mom? Tell her to come on camera.
Mommy to come on. Let me see mommy. Where you at? I know I done messed up your whole scenario, didn't I?
She's probably holding it. She's probably like, now I gotta come.
Now I gotta figure this out. But listen, while mom is looking at that, this is what I want to say to you. You are so bright, and your mother did such a good job. I mean, you are so smart because you're right. And I wanna say something to you, because you said something very profound. The word profound means deep. You said something very profound. You said that many women want to hide, and you're right. But we can hide, and I don't ever want you to hide. Either one of you. You're so gorgeous, the two of you, and you're so smart. You got beauty, you got brains, you got a strong mom. Don't ever hide. What you have inside that gorgeous brain of yours, and I wear eyeglasses too. I have contacts in right now. But what you have inside of those beautiful brains, behind those gorgeous eyes of yours, both of you, Brylan and Phoenix, is determination. I can see it. You're so smart. You're so beautiful. Mm-hmm. God bless. Mommy, you did good. You did a good job. There she goes. She got that camera together. Daggone the technical challenge. You did it.
I know. But they are so excited when they saw your photograph. The first thing they said was, wow, she's beautiful. And so your spirit just shows through the encouragement that you've just even provided to my girls. I'm just so grateful to have this opportunity for them to be able to connect and see the amazing things that you're doing. So thank you for everything, for blazing that path. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And I got to tell you, Sha said something earlier. She said, seems like you should start early with these girls. And our ideal age is middle school, because that's when their brains are, they're a little smart and everything, but they're my favorite audience. And guess what? Those two girls, my favorite audience now.
Well, we thank you guys for coming on. Yes, we thank you all so much for coming on, and that Ms. Hopson was able to pour into you all. And again, make sure you go check out her website so you can get more information about how you can pre-order her book as well. So you all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Rich L.
Unless we're back. So I wanted to. I mean, I know it's like so many other things I'm going to talk, but we were talking about the book. Let's talk about A Pair of Wings. Let's talk about not only your initiative, but the book. And like you said, that's not knowing about. We hear about Amelia Earhart. We hear the movies, seeing all variations of her name. But Bessie Coleman's name is not the name you get stirred up when you think about a woman pilot and making history. What was it? And then, of course, being into this in the field that you're in, you sought out her story. But what made you say, I want to bring this into a book? And then, as you were saying, hopefully a film.
So here goes the story. I was 34 years old. I decided, you know what? I can't wait anymore. I'm going to go and learn about this. Now, you got to remember, this is 22 years ago. So the internet was not what it is. We didn't live daily with search engines and pick up your phone and start searching. That wasn't how it was.
Yeah.
I learned that I went to the library, and the Women in Aviation Convention was in March for Women's History Month. And the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals Convention was in August. It wasn't Black History Month, but that's when it was. And so I went to both conventions. And at the Women in Aviation Convention, this woman walked up to me. We were waiting in line for the bus because the bus went from the hotels, and a lot of people shared rooms and stuff, to the convention hall. And this lady stepped up and she said, "Tell me about yourself." And she was very perky and she was very nice and very, very, very up. And that woman wound up being one of my best friends on the planet. Her name was Jenny Beatty, Captain Jenny Beatty. And what she did for me was she said, "I would like to help you. I would like to help you get to however it is that your goal is." So she said, "Let's make sure that we keep in touch. Let's exchange numbers, blah, blah, blah." On the last day of the convention, she said, "I have a gift for you." And she gave me this gift. It was all wrapped up beautifully. I could tell it was a coffee mug, right? And the coffee mug had that same picture on it. And on the back, it had 2 paragraphs about Bessie Coleman. Well, here's the shocker, Sha. I had never heard of who Bessie Coleman was. I was 34 years old. College, graduate school, Ivy League graduate school. And yet, I had never heard of who Bessie Coleman was. Outrage. Fast forward, I told you about the September 11th. I had my children, and we went to Martha's Vineyard because my youngest son had a spill, and we wanted to get out. My husband said, we need to get away. And we went up there, and we went to they have something called the Farm Institute, and in the fall, they have a corn maze and an apple orchard, and we came out the apple orchard, and there were 2 biplanes. There were 2 biplanes. It so happens that there was a grass strip right next to the Farm Institute. And my husband said, "Hey, I think that's a Stearman. And that right there is, I said, Washington Aviation Corporation, Waco, 1940. He said, 1940, 42? I said, 1941. I mean, I'm a girl that can talk airplanes, right?
Right.
So we got in the car and drove because it was far, right? And an airstrip can sometimes be a mile long. So we got in the car and we went there. And when we got there, the guy said, "Hey, you can hop in the airplane." And we did. And the biplane made me realize how fragile the pioneers' experiences must have been in those airplanes. And all of a sudden, I was like, I got to write a book because people have to understand what it was like. So what my research taught me, and the book that I've written is really about 2 parallel things that happened. The Great Migration of African Americans from the South to the North, starting in 1915. And that's the year that Bessie Coleman moves north. And the other is the dawn of the Great Migration and the dawn of aviation. The Wright brothers made their first flight on December 3rd, December 17th, 1903. And so those 2 time periods come together, and there's only one woman in the whole world to make those 2 lines of longitude bend. And she creates, as I love to say, her own meridian. And that's Bessie Coleman. And we don't know about her. That's an outrage. Those 2 beautiful Black little girls, they should know who Bessie Coleman is.
Especially when you think about like at that time, it was like, how dare you even think to even want to be that? Women weren't even allowed to even vote. And you're telling me you want to fly? Like it's amazing that that this story has not been put out in the forefront because of the fact that she took on something. I mean, she didn't stop at no when people were telling her no here in the United States. She left. So it's amazing that her story has not been brought to the forefront, but because of you, it needed to be. But I'm just surprised we haven't had that story on a larger scale at all.
And you, Sha, again, you are so insightful. I think one of the things that makes her story so profound is that, yes, she would not take no for an answer. And what does that mean? So She goes over to France to learn how to fly. No. Embedded in that sentence is she has to learn how to speak French well enough to save her bacon, to fly an airplane that's made of cloth and spruce wood. And so one of the biggest outrages to me and the biggest ironies is that June 15th, the book drops June 15th, 2021, because it's 100 years since she earned her brevet. Remember we talked about that private pilot license? So that's what they were giving out in France. And so she goes over to France because there's no other option, right? No one will teach her here. And there was no FAA back then. There was no FAA. So there was only the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale. So she goes over to France to learn how to fly. She comes back to the US. She's 100 years ahead of her time. So what does she do? She goes back over to France, to Berlin, and to Amsterdam. And she does all of this. Why? So she can become an aerobatic pilot or a barnstormer. And she comes back to the US. And God, Sha, you are so insightful. She's flying airplanes before most Americans drive, as they called them back then, automobiles. Henry Ford's first automobile that rolls off the assembly line is in 1908. So most Americans don't even own cars. Not to mention they haven't even seen a plane in the sky. And she's flying them. And why haven't they seen a plane in the sky? Because World War I was fought over in Europe. And so they didn't see airplanes crossing and dogfighting. They didn't see all of that. And you also led to another point. Women got the right to vote, suffragettes in 1920, prohibition, right? So all of these things, while Bessie is over in or just about the time that she goes over to France to learn how to fly, the riots in Tulsa take on the most virulent path ever. And thousands of Black men and women are slaughtered. Why? Because one Black man was accused of, I forget whether he was accused of whistling or
something. The normal variation of like some kind of thing they want to attack a Black man over. Yeah, I think it was that too. Yeah.
And there were 75 Great War, because back then World War I wasn't called World War I because it was the first war. It was called the Great War. And so along come all of these Great War veterans to support one of their own. And there were 75 of them. So the 75 show up at the courthouse. And guess what happens? 1,500 vigilantes come. And they slaughter them. And they set fire to Tulsa, which was called the Black Wall Street because it was so phenomenal. And there were about a dozen Black enclaves around the country. Zora Neale Hurston writes about Eatonville, Florida. There was Stamps, Arkansas. There were several all around the country, mostly in the South. And Bessie Coleman seemed like she did very well in them. One of them was in Callahan, Florida, right outside Orlando. That's where Bessie was when she died. She also was very successful in Independence Heights, Texas, outside Houston, right? So at the same time where the Great Migration was pulling people north, there was this enclave and people saying, well, we're not leaving the South. We built the South as slaves. Bessie Coleman's mother is a slave. The man who helped her get to France, Robert Abbott, started a magazine, a newspaper in Chicago called the Chicago Defender. He became a millionaire in the teens. Another Black man who helped Bessie Coleman get to France is named Jesse Bingham. He too is a millionaire and became her lover. 2 Black self-made millionaires, neither of whom are in the daily lexicon. Robert Abbott, Jesse Bingham. Banking, publishing, aviation. These people, yes, they shot out of slavery. Each one of them. Well, Jesse Bingham did not, but certainly Bessie Coleman did. Jack Johnson in sports. I mean, these people, they just took the world by storm. They grabbed it.
Yeah. And so with your initiative in wanting to get 100 Black women and learning how to fly, what would you say are some of the challenges or some of the kind of misconceptions that people have when it comes down to even starting out or finding out how to even become a pilot?
Again, Sha, you ask all the right questions. I mean, you're so smart. And by the way, guys, we didn't practice this ahead of time. These are Shaw's questions. That's how smart it is. So I had an interview with a woman named Caroline Clark. She wrote a book called Postcards from Cookies, brilliant book. And she's doing an anthology. And so she interviewed me a couple of weeks ago, and she asked me a very similar question. She said, what's going to be harder? Raising $6.5–7 million for this effort? Or is it going to be finding 100 Black women to go to flight school? Mm-hmm. Because what you're talking about is a sea change, doubling the number of Black women who are. And by the way, Sisters of the Skies, which is an organization, an offshoot of OBAP, they say that the number is 150. I don't care, 150, 100. It's still a percentage. It's not even a percentage. And they say that number includes military pilots, cargo pilots, regional airline pilots, major airline pilots. They say, you know, with that whole world, it's 150. What do I think is going to be the hardest? Convincing people that they can do this. The best example is me standing in front of them. In a way, COVID is dreadful. In so many ways, COVID is dreadful. In so many ways, COVID has been an amazing boost. And let me explain to you one of them. One of my mentors, a man named Captain Albert Glenn, who runs that flight school I talked about down in Olive Branch, Mississippi. The reason why this flight school is so amazing is because it's run by airline pilots, airline captains. So my mentor, Captain Albert Glenn, was a 777 pilot for FedEx. For 44 years, he was a pilot for them and retired as a 777 captain. His co-director flies for UPS and is a captain on the 747, a Boeing 747. And I tell you that, not to name drop and say that, but to tell you that school is run by airline pilots. So they understand the training. These are Black men who have gone through a lot. And so they're behind this mission. And we have several initiatives to get to expose. The greatest challenge is exposure. I tell you all that to say this. Captain Glenn said this to me. He said in the beginning, it was hard to get Black people out to the airport. Now, through COVID, through what we're doing right now, we're in their living rooms. We were sitting on the couch with Phoenix and Bryland's mom. She got in the picture. Yeah. She figured it out. She turned the thing this way. We were in their living room, literally. So I think that exposure is something. Here's something else I know. You know, if you give the example, I'm looking at this United Airlines flight going into LaGuardia. It's just over my shoulder.
That's amazing.
I'm always looking up. Always looking up. I think one of the things I like to sign in my book is never stop looking up. So I will tell you this. When this all happened and we started coming into people's living rooms and they started, you know, it's like a proliferation. Like, wow, holy smoke. So when I see people at the airport, they come, my editor said something to me the other day. She said, you know, until we started working on this story, she said, I would leave the plane and people look so much alike. I can't see anybody's face. She said, if I walked off the plane and saw you, I would remember. And because of that, when I go to the hotel or getting on the employee van, or I'm getting on the hotel van or into the limo to get from the airport to the hotel on our overnight, people will stop me. It's not that I'm any more approachable than anybody else. It's just that I stick out and they want to ask, how did you get? So I walk them through what we just walked through, Sha. Okay, first you start with the private pilot. I feel like getting like a post, you know, the
scroll.
Yeah, some kind of scroll, you know. And it's funny. I think I might do that. Maybe I might do that on the back of my business card for a pair.
Yeah, like a little card, like a little bullet. Yeah. These things you should know. Yeah.
These things you should know. This is how you get started. It's a great idea.
And which goes always to the fact that people will say about representation and how seeing it matters. And I'm glad that United Airlines did that video of you so that, hopefully people could see it on another scale. I know you was on Tamron Hall, and that can also change it because people don't think it's attainable because they don't see it. Because for the longest time, I just thought it was the good old boy club, only a certain, kind of person. But and it's almost, when I thought about it, when we were talking about, you were saying about convincing people, there's still a mentality that men should be the only one driving cars. So there's, like people say, oh, your husband is not going to drive, you're going to drive. Yes, because I like to drive. There's that mentality that there's certain things in positions, even today, that women shouldn't be doing. So even convincing counterparts of ours to say, and even ourselves, that no, women can do these as well. This isn't about your ability to leap over buildings. Like, this is your brain and your aptitude to learn.
You are so smart. Let me say two things. There are countries where women can't drive.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I love to say to people, they were like, oh my God, you're so little and you're handling that big old airplane. And I always say, I don't have to carry it.
Exactly.
But and I say that jokingly, but I mean that, right? My colleague isn't going to pick it up either. Flying an airplane is more like massaging a baby than like, massaging a man. You have to have a light touch. And so, I say all the time that exposure is the biggest key to getting people interested. Once we expose people, and then think of it this way. Think about Tiger with golf or Venus and Serena with tennis. A lot of times we get into stuff and we take over. So why do I say that? You said the good old boy club. And this is what the translation of that is in my industry. If your dad and your uncle and your brother, or let's keep it in the generation ahead of you, right? Because what did I talk about? I said Bessie Coleman's mother had been a slave, right? My mother went to college, but my mother went to college when I went to college, not before, right? So if you're the first, and she was the first in her family to go to college, that first generation, so broke a lot of barriers. Speaking another language, first to go to college, all of those things. We're coming up on an hour, so I'll wrap up. But here's what I would say. And I love how that young woman asked me that question about hiding. Oh, man, that gave me the chills. Because we can't hide anymore. We have to do things and take risks. A very good girlfriend of mine, her name is Suzanne Douglas. She's a beautiful, beautiful woman. She's an actress. She always asks this question. She says, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do?
It's so true.
What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? So why won't you do it? Remember when you asked me that question, a very insightful question, Sha, and I said, So I was more afraid of the next 30 years, not the 20 that was behind me. I saved my money. I'm more afraid of the 20 that's in front of me. It's a long time. I split the difference, 25.
I love it. But before we wrap up, I know that along with the book and your initiative with the 100 Pair Wings project that you have, an initiative that you're trying to get the Black women to be a part of, what are some other goals that you have on your list, and even the goals with this book that you would like to see happen?
So Sha, you flashed it underneath of us. The 100 Pairs of Wing Project aims to send 100 African-American women to the Luke Brothers Fund. So that's not enough, Sha? You want me to do something else?
You're like, I think I'm going to take on that. We got 2025, then after that.
2035. I'm giving myself
that's right, 35.
Okay. I would rather, I never want to overpromise and underdeliver. If we get that done by 2032, I'm going to be a happy camper. I'm going to drop the mic. And what's my next goal? To make sure I still fit into a bikini. I don't know, Sha. What am I going to do next? I don't know. But here's the thing. This book, Okay, it took me 12 years to write this book. The last minute getting the book out, oh my gosh. I mean, it really is something. There's a gazillion details. When I first started writing the book, I wrote it as an omniscient narrator. So the narrator tells everything. Then I wrote it from her best girlfriend. This time I've written it from a first person. So my goal is to get this book out. My goal is to represent her well. So there you go. June 15th. I can hear like the drum beat in my head. It's around the corner. So book, I'd like a movie. Why? Because it's cinematic.
Yes.
When I had done my research about Bessie Coleman, I thought, oh my goodness, she went to flight school in France on the mustard fields, in the, that kind of business. She didn't. She went to flight school on the beach in the northern part of France. And so what that did for me, my husband was going to France. And there are many things that have happened. I call them convergences, no longer coincidences. And he said to me, I have to go to France for work. You want to come? You got to go to Paris. I'm like, yes, I do. And so we're on the plane. Not like her. She was in steerage on an ocean liner that took 12 days to get from New York or New Jersey, actually Bayonne, New Jersey, to Brest, France. I was on a first class airplane, Air France, going over to Paris, and I'm looking at my ticket. Kept looking at the date. Same date that she started out.
Wow. Serendipitous. That's amazing. Wow.
And so I say all that to serendipitous. I say all that to say that I really feel like I want to represent her well. And my goal is book and then movie. Why movie? Well, in order to fly on the beach, you have to understand the moon and the tides. You got to come back before the moon pulls the sea. And so she knew so much more than I even thought that she knew. And I learned so much about history, World War I, and women's history, and the history of our country, and the history of aviation. I learned that wonderful book, Hidden Figures, at the end of the day is about two things in my mind. It's about the space race and the civil rights movement. My book is about the Great Migration and the dawn of aviation. If you pare it down to those two very simple things, you can take all the complex things and do what Bessie Coleman did. She taught us that there is nothing that you can't do. She taught us by example.
And you are showing us that there's nothing we can't do. And we are so honored. I know that we're running this time, but I just wanted to kind of just leave, everyone who's watching and our children with some advice or words of wisdom or something you live by, or what would be your lasting, words that you would want to pour into anyone who's looking at starting a new career or starting out in a career or whatever they're trying to do. What advice would you give them?
I love your show because we're speaking to children and we're speaking to adults and we're talking to people and telling them, encouraging them. The name of your show is Inspire. And I would say this, if you have a dream, and that video that you showed at the top of the piece, and I say you're never too old to follow your dreams. You're never too poor to follow your dream. You're never too female. You're never too Black. You're never too Indian. You're never too Asian. You're never too nothing. You follow your dreams. And here's the thing. A dream is amazing, but you must turn it into a goal. And a goal is a dream with a date on it. Put a date on it. And break it up into small pieces. That huge. I like looking at the three of us like that. And so here goes the thing. If you are going to follow that dream, break it up just like you did in this panel. There you are. There I am. There's Sha. So break it up into small pieces and put a date on each one and hold yourself to it. When I lost 140 pounds, I did it 1 pound at a time. And I got on the scale every day, the same time, without fail. without fail, almost like military precision. And my wait time, I would wake at 3 to write this book, and I would give myself from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. And every morning between 7 and 7:05, I would weigh myself, and I wrote it down.
Well, you said you don't have another goal. I think a weight loss book.
I'm ready for it.
So when this is done, you done your book tour and the movie's out. Rick, I want you to do a weight loss book by Carole Hopson. I'm waiting on that one.
You don't need it. Both of y'all are gorgeous.
No, I need.
This has been amazing. This has been so amazing. Like I feel like there's so much more. I mean, and I know that you're gonna be probably doing so many other interviews. I just, thank you for, being able to share your journey and being the inspiration that so many women need to see. Like, I mean, I remember when Dante said that you were the pilot, I was like, a pilot? Is that a real thing? Is that real? Like we need to change that narrative. We need to change the thought of that being something that's like shocking to hear.
Well,
and
because I love that you said that, because when I said to Dante, he said, well, what do you and your husband do? It's the kind of, because I was coming and going, be gone for a couple of days, be gone for about a month. And then we have a so blessed, we got a home in Massachusetts. So we come and we go, we come and we go. And so Dante said one day I showed up and I was in my uniform. I came home from work. He was like, you are a pilot. I was like, yes, I'm not kidding.
He thought you just saying it. but that's the reason why. But when I'm talking to you, I know that everyone are searching for their purpose in life. It's like, it's so, you can see that was what God's assignment for you was. Like, it's almost like, it because of the fact that it was meant for this to happen. Bessie's story couldn't come out before this because it was meant for you. Like, those were your assignments. And I'm so thankful, and I can give me chills thinking about it, that's where your purpose is going to be, and that how this is going to be a narrative that people are going to talk about. Oh yeah, she's about. And you're going to be the one who's the game changer that's making that happen. And I'm so honored to know I can say, I know her. I know. So I thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you for just pouring and being a shining light and a guiding light to so many. I appreciate you so much for that.
Thank you. What a
Thank
blessing.
you, Carole.
That was like a prayer.
Yeah. Let me tell you, we have the most fabulous host, and Sha, we couldn't do this platform without her. She's simply amazing.
And I just want to shout out to the two of you, because one of the things I love, and people say to me, let me see if I understand this. You want to get Black women to fly? Yes, I do.
Yes.
The two of you all working together. I can't stand when people say, oh my goodness, they can't work together. Oh, women, they can't.
And this is 20 plus years of friendship too. So this is not like, so.
It's so silly. My girlfriend Suzanne, I was telling you about, we've been friends for forever. Jenny Beatty and I, the woman I talked to you about, she and I have been friends for 20 years. She's white, I'm Black, and we always say, our mamas has some kind of, what did that do? And I think that there's something about the friendship of women. I would say my goals, while they are very noble, don't get me wrong, although Sha wants me to do something else. Oh my God, Sha.
When this movie come about, you're gonna have a director or executive producer add onto it, so don't worry.
So
speak it into existence, Sha. Keep going.
Yes. But I will say this, the other thing I think which is so critical is that when I walk into the training center, I don't want to be the only one that they see. I'm not purely altruistic. The more they see us, the more convinced and the more convincing we can be. Not only can I do this, and not only should you trust me, but you need to trust me. I'm a mom, and I make good mommy decisions. I'm a wife. I'm an author. I have a lot of sense I bring to this. I'm very conservative. My decisions are they're rooted in safety. I mean, I have 2 children. What I do is focus so I can get home and make dinner and do all the mommy things I gotta do. So I'm serious, and I'm gonna bring other people in here who are serious like I am. Working, safety first, focus. It's all that. We're not playing around here.
No.
And Carol, I do want to say, you said something earlier. I think we have to start younger. I mean, it's the same with engineering. If you don't go start them early enough, you got to expose them early enough.
Don't start. You are on point. When we don't start, there's a woman at Boeing, and I got to get to her because I think Boeing would be the ideal sponsor for this.
Okay.
Woman, speak into existence. There's a woman at Boeing, and she came to an organization of Black aerospace professionals. Brilliant woman. She was on the board with another mentor of mine, a gentleman named Carl Minter, who was chair of OBAP, and I was vice chair at the time. The last chair we had was a woman named Vanessa Jameson, and Vanessa and I were the first female in 40 some odd years management team. And then there's another gentleman there named Joel Webley who's doing a great job now. But anyway, I said all that to say that when we start talking about exposure at young ages, this lady came in and she ran the numbers for us. She said, number of African Americans who wind up in aerospace, mechanical, nuclear, engineering. Here goes the number. Here goes the number. And then she went backwards. And she went through graduate school, college, high school, middle school, elementary school. And by the time she got to the very first test that kids take, the very first standardized test, many of our kids are out of the number. Our kids don't get the prep for those first tests. I want to pair that to what I heard from another girlfriend of mine, a woman named Deirdre Pooh. Deirdre's an amazing woman in New Jersey, and she worked for several governors. And she talked about how the states begin to look at how they make our facilities. And one of the leaps I had was to how do they set out the number of prison cells, right? It's based on third grade reading schools.
Yeah. And then economic disparity is adding to that. So
that's third grade.
Yeah.
And then you look at COVID. So what didn't kill the older population wound up with food insecurity and more difficulties in schools. When you crunch that, our numbers get smaller and smaller. The earlier that we expose children, like those two children, in their living rooms with their mother, holding that thing. The poor thing, her little fingers must have been cramped because she was holding that phone straight. I mean, it didn't move. It was fine. Y'all know what y'all did to prepare her, but that was on point. And that mom, right, exposing her kids, and getting in touch with you all, and making her kids ask those questions. Okay, go ahead, and then they had their own little what?
Yes.
The earlier we do that,
yes,
and it starts in the womb with good food and singing to your baby, and
yes,
talking to your baby, doing all the things. Sha, I saw you talking to your little babies, right? Yeah. All of that. That's how it starts from us, mother tongue.
Yes.
Speaking to them.
Yes.
Going to them. That's so true. Well, this has been just so. I mean, like I said, I'm so excited to see, and I'm knowing that things are going to be so great with this book that it's going to be eye-opening to so many, and hopefully get into schools. I mean, I think that's another important key element that needs to happen, because, like you said, I never learned about it until I saw that you were talking about her. I was like, really? I didn't know this is real. So it's something that needs to happen, and I'm glad you're leading the charge of it, that it will, for sure.
I would love this book to be part of the university system's common read. So, I mean, it's a grown-up book now. Let me just warn you, okay? She's a grown-up. She does grown-up things. And I wanted that, and here goes the reason. There's one very, very, very good biography or biographical book. Is very, very studious, and it's called Queen Bess Daredevil Aviator by a woman named Doris Ridge, who wrote it for the Smithsonian Press. It's very well done. It's a very well done book. But is it a book, or do we get an audience of young women who, like yourselves, get your kids and go to the drop-off line and pick up? I want you. I want your colleague who is white, who is Asian, who is East Indian, who is Mexican. I was buying a piece of furniture, and the woman who was waiting on me, the designer, was a woman from East India. And she said this to me. She said, I know that this story is about Black women. She said, but this is about Indian women. This is a woman from Mexico. She said, I know you're talking about a Black woman, but this is the story of women in Mexico. I was talking to a woman from China. And she said, I know that you're writing a story about a Black American woman, but this is a story about Chinese women. European women. Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is a story of, and then it's a story of women who are a little older. She doesn't start flying until she's in her 20s, which back then was middle age.
Yeah. You were married off with kids by that time. Yeah.
Off with kids. So,
and that's so great to know that, because I think for people to be able to see themselves in her without it being relation to race, ethnicity, that's the testament to her journey, that she was able to have that, when no matter what she was going on in her life, she was able to be seen beyond her race or what her journey was. It was anyway. So,
and I think my job, if I've done it well, as a historical fictional writer, and why is it historical fiction? Because I don't know the conversations she had with people. So we know the events of her life, and we can surmise the conversations, but so let's be honest. So my job, if I've done it well, is a page turner. My job, if I've done it well, is a teaching element without teaching, right? Without beating people up. And the other thing is, hopefully it is inspirational. It drives people to say, am I doing everything I ought to be doing? What purpose in life? Why am I here?
Yeah.
What am I being asked to do? Well, let me get up off my duff and do it.
And not let age define that. That's the biggest thing. It's like, people feel like age is the kiss of death in terms of certain career professions. And you feel like once I get to this point, then I can't pursue it. And I think that's, such for your own story, being able to say at this age, I accomplished these goals, despite people maybe telling me no.
I think what's great about that is it draws in an audience of middle-aged women, right? And you still got some chutzpah. Well, guess what? I like to say, when you're 20s, you're in your 20s, you can see power. When you're in your 30s, you can recognize it. You see it, you know it, you got it. When you're in your 40s, you can use it. When you're in your 50s, you can wield it.
I like that.
I don't know what's going to happen in my 60s, but they're coming fast. I got to find something else to say.
It'll come to you by the time it just falls into your brain by that point.
and I think a shadow of that is that you can share it because you have so much of it. And I think women need to be reminded of that. I stood on the beach one day, and I was with a girlfriend in Martha's Vineyard, and it was the end of the summer, so everybody had bought everything they had left in their fridge because they were going to drive back to New Jersey or to Boston or to Philly or to New York. And this woman said to me, she said, look at all those beautiful Black women. She said, where do you think their drive is? Where do you think they want to be? Have they lost it? I don't know about them, girl, but I know I got some in me. And I think that we often need to challenge ourselves. So we're talking about exposure to young women, right? So that's over here.
Yeah.
And then over here, we're saying to older women, don't lose your chutzpah. What you want to do with yourself? And when you put those two things together, you have the trajectory or the arc of a woman's life. And sometimes we write ourselves off onto over there. I can't do that. I don't. We hide. Ooh.
We hide.
Like
we
that girl said. Like that girl. She understands. You know why? Because she got that mama. Her mother told her. She's heard that. She's learned that. She's smart because she learned it. Her mother's smart because her mother taught her.
And that's such a good thing to have someone being able to tell you that this is things that you can do and accomplish in your story and and the story you're telling for Bessie is something that we need to constantly hear. And hopefully that whatever we're doing on this platform is connecting people to that story so they can be inspired by it. We are so thankful to have you here. And just like I said, I just can't wait because I just feel it. You know, you just feel something's going to be really big. I do. I feel it. But we thank you so much for coming on Inspire and pouring into our young youth who came on to the show to ask questions, Violet and Phoenix. But
I can't wait till they're sitting next to me or flying flight, but I'm taking for vacation.
Right. I'm coming on a plane like, oh, there she is. Well, we thank you so much for coming on and come back. I mean, you know, this, but when the movie's about to premiere. Oh, and that was a question I was going to ask. If you could think of anybody to play her, who would you want it to be?
Okay. I'll try to make sure I don't mess up my whole setup here because you got me really excited. Speak it, right?
Yeah, speak it.
I have fantasized about Journey Smollett playing.
Oh. Yes, I can see that. That gave me chills. I can see that.
I see her lover, who was 23 years older than she, as Idris Elba. I see Mos Def in there. I see there's a wonderful role for Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells was a preeminent journalist and lynching crusader. That means she was dogged on saying my people will not be lynched. And she moved from Holly Springs, Mississippi to Chicago. And she went from being the poorest to living like a queen. And there's a wonderful scene in that book that I have a lot of fun with because I believe that Ida B. Wells was extraordinary. She also had 5 children. So while she was just like you all, I don't know that y'all had 5 children, but just like you all were doing stuff and leading stuff and broadcast on Inspire, she was making, catfish and making pies, and she's from Holly Springs, Mississippi, so you knew she knew how to cook.
Right.
So there is this amazing side of her that history doesn't. All we see is that piece. She's got her hair up in the little
bun, yeah.
We don't know nothing about her. We just know that she was a crusader. Plessy versus Ferguson, way back turn of the century, long before Rosa Parks ever got thrown off of a bus. Ida B. Wells bit a train conductor. He tried to throw her off of the train. I throw mama off the train. I think that's where the saying came from.
But that's great to be able to tell another story within her story and create the character of something that we never get to see throughout the other biopics that often are out there that she's woven into other stories. So I love that.
And so, you asked me that question, who do I see in that role? I don't know. I mean, that's who I would love to see in those roles. No, but, is it Will Smith? Is it, I don't know, is it what's the other gorgeous, there's so many, thank God we have a choice of fantastic actresses. And right?
That's going to be amazing. I like when you said that, I was like, she's a good one. Journey's a really good one. She's so talented. So
who would you like to see in that role?
You know who I think is really good? If you the young girl, she's on the medical drama and she used to be a model. Not Zendaya. Zandaya's another one. She actually is another good one. I didn't even think about Zendaya. Zendaya's a really good one. She's a young actor that she actually won. I think she won an Oscar recently, but she's another good one that I think could play her as well. And then you have your Denzel Washington's son. I think it's Michael David Washington is his name. He's another good actor. The two of them actually played opposite each other in a Netflix show. So I think that between them, the two of them and what they've done and with their career so far, I think they would be really good too.
And then here goes the other thing. Then there's the Audible book, right? So I'm not even together for that, but that I wish that had come out at the same time as the book, but it will come out soon. Yeah. And I would like a celebrity to read that book for a couple of reasons. One, I almost don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
Two, I'm busy flying the plane. And two, I would like to have a wide reach of audience.
Yeah.
In my brain, who would be best to do something like that? I don't know.
Mhm.
I love an Angela Bassett.
I was about to literally, Angela came in my head in narration wise, like her
Or
voice has such a presence. Yeah.
Beautiful. Viola Davis.
Mm-hmm.
It's a woman who was the same age as Bessie Coleman was when she died. By the way, Bessie was not flying when she died. That's all. That's another story. But you know, she was 34 years old when she died. So is it the voice of a 34-year-old? Is it you know, is it someone like Alicia Keys? I don't know. I'm looking for someone who would read the book. I believe a workman is worth his hire. My mother used to always tell me. So is it a person who would be who would volunteer their time to the project? Oh my God, that would be a mitzvah, right? I don't know. But I know I'd like a greater reach. And I think greater reach would be perhaps a celebrity.
And a lot of times it's just, I mean, the connection, the people seeing this story and being like, why don't I know about this? Why haven't I? So then once that happens,
who you know, Sha?
Keyana really is the plug. So, you know, she's the plug. So don't worry, you know, between this interview and the relationship that's going to be built from this, we're going to make sure this book is put into a couple of people's hands so that those things happen, because it needs to happen for sure. So,
and so the book comes out June 15th, 2020, a couple weeks.
Listen, I can't wait. I can't wait.
And then the Audible book will probably be in the fall, only because, and at the same time that we start the launch for 100 Pair of Wings. And so one of the things that we're working on is a college read. So one university reads, or they call it a common read. I have a close connection with Rutgers, and I love the school here in New Jersey. I would love for HBCUs to do this. Langston University in Oklahoma is a school where Bessie Coleman went to school, in HBCU. Howard University has, as well as Texas Southern and Dell State and Florida Memorial. Those are all schools that have airplanes and a flying program, an aviation program. So those are all things that are going through our brain right now for part of the launch. And we will do some part of the launch at the Lieutenant Colonel Weathers Flight School down on Olive Branch, Mississippi. And one more time, the reason why we're just so far behind that school is because while other schools take you through their program for about $100,000, sometimes $150,000, Luke Weathers is $50,000, 1/3 of that number, because it's a nonprofit, a 501c3 of Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, which is a wonderful organization.
That is so great. Well, like I said, whatever we can do, and like I said, we'll talk again more. We're going to make it happen, because like I said, I see great things coming from this, and I'm glad you're the one leading the charge and making it happen. So we thank you so much. We thank you so much for joining us. And again, if anyone wants to find and pre-order her book, make sure you go to her website now. It's right on the bottom, Carole Hopson right there.com. Make sure you follow her on Instagram as well, and just, you know, stay connected to her and her journey, so that others can be inspired by her as so much as we are and have been today. So we thank you again. Thank you.
I love you all.
Love you more.
You guys are fantastic. God bless you.
God bless you as well. And we thank you all for joining us here tonight on Inspire. If you know, just leaving from this interview today has lifted me in another place, because oftentimes you always thinking, am I on the right path? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And I always say these interviews I have are God's reminders to me. And hopefully it has been that to you as well. Whatever you are sitting in your life right now, figuring out, should this be the time? I don't think I should do it. Let this be a reminder that Ms. Hopson's story, as well as Bessie Coleman's story, is a story about never giving up. Never let your dreams scare you to the point where you don't pursue them. And let the fear be a fueling factor for you. We are so happy you continuously join us, but make sure you follow us on all our social media platforms at Inspire by Enonus. If you know someone else who has been an inspiration to your life, please email us at inspirebyanonis@gmail.com. We also have shirts available for you if you would like to purchase some. You can DM us or email us and find about available sizes and colors. That helps supports the platform, as well as if you like to donate to the show, please do so by sending a cash up at $ Keyana Tennant. And that's right there below, as you can see. But again, follow Miss Hopson and follow her journey, and make sure if you can go on and pre-order her book. I can only imagine the way her mind probably explored the journey of Miss Coleman's life to where I want to read it. It's going to be a page turner, so I can't wait. But until then, you all be blessed, and remember, we inspire together.